Hello and welcome back to another Dodgeball video. In today's video, I've consolidated my top 9 tips that are going to help you improve your opening rush. This is going to go for both the players running for the ball and also the ones receiving the toss back. And if you are keen on improving your opening rush, in addition to this video and next week's video, I'll have some drills you can do that'll improve your opening rush. So let's jump right into these tips. So tip number 1, it starts with the starting stance and have an efficient starting stance. So I came from a track background and I looked to how the 100-meter sprinters did it when I first transitioned to dodgeball, because again, you're starting from complete stop all the way trying to go full speed. You know, as a mid-distance runner, we didn't have to worry about going into a full sprint in our races. So I actually have a breakdown of how to do a box start in next week's video, but for this video's purposes, I'll kind of just run through it really quick. So you normally want to have your legs facing, your feet facing forward. This is because, like, for instance, I've seen people all the time, they have one foot sideways and then one foot forward. Now you have to turn your hip just to start going straight. You're gonna lose a second there turning your hip. You want to already be facing straight. You want to be leaning forward. Your back leg is going to be your non-dominant leg because your front leg is going to be the one that gets the most push and force off the ground. So you want that to be your dominant leg. So you would have your back leg touching the back line and your front leg forward, leaning forward in a comfortable stance. So you don't want your legs too far apart, too spread out. You want to make sure you're comfortable leaning forward. And then when the dodgeball goes off or the whistle goes off, you can push off to the front. And tip number 2 kind of goes along with tip number 1. You want to make sure as the runner you are pumping your arms and driving your knees. That is going to keep the force on the ground going, your force production going, and keep your momentum going. So when you start, you want to make sure that the opposite arm to your dominant leg in the front is behind you. So when you push off, you're bringing your arm forward, you're bringing that momentum forward, and again, driving your knees as you pump your arms. Now there's a short distance from the back line to the center line compared to a 100-meter sprint, for instance. So you're not actually going to reach your top speed. You're still going to be in your acceleration phase when you're going to the line. So you want to do everything you can to try and get as close to your top speed as possible as you're sprinting for these balls. And by pumping your arms and driving your knees, that's just going to propel you forward, propel that momentum forward. Tip number 3 is to count your steps. And again, I'm going to look to my track background here for this example. If you look at the hurdlers, they have a set number of steps in between each hurdle, a specific stride length that they're taking. That is maximizing their efficiency, because they don't want to be jumping over a hurdle and then needing to stutter step. That's just going to slow them down. Well, the same thing applies to the opening rush. The last thing you want is your last couple steps. You need to stutter step and slow yourself down, because you're striding way too long and you're going to pass the balls. You're not going to be able to reach them efficiently. It's going to slow you down. So something that you will have to do, because it's going to be different for everyone, is figure out the right stride length for you, the right number of steps to get you to the ball the most efficiently as possible. And by having that down, you know, the size of the court is not going to change. The opening rush length is always going to be the same. When you get that routine down, it's going to maximize your efficiency and allow you to get to the line as quickly as possible. So tip number 4 is to practice sliding and see if it works for you. So typically in foam, you have 2 players rushing to the balls, the 3 balls on your right side. The outermost person doesn't really need to slide in a typical opening rush strategy. It's usually, if anyone's going to slide, it's going to be the innermost person. But sliding, to me, I wouldn't say it's more or less efficient than just running to the balls. It really comes down to personal preference and what works for you, because sliding might be faster for one person to do, and another person, it might slow them down and it's better for them not to slide. So this is going to be something that you should practice on your own and find out if it's something that works for you and if it's worth doing. And again, this kind of leads into tip number 3 again, because if you are going to be sliding, you're going to want to factor that in to your steps and when you should start to go into the slide. That's all something that you're going to want to perfect to have the maximum efficiency possible. Tip number 5, communicate with your team. Make sure everyone is on the same page. There are so many different things you can do for the opening rush. It doesn't have to be so vanilla, having 2 people run, toss it to the middle throws. A lot as you get higher up in the competitive level, teams will do various things on the opening rush, not just tossing it to the middle. So you want to make sure everyone on your team is on the same page. starting with the two people who are rushing, who's getting 2 balls, who's getting 1, who's tossing to who's taking the throw on the opening rush, or who might take the throw on the opening rush. All this should be communicated before each individual set happens. The last thing you want is for both players rushing to go for 2 balls and then one gets knocked over the center. I've seen that happen a lot. Or you toss it and the wrong person throws, so you accidentally throw 2 in the opening rush, or any sort of miscommunication thing that can happen. By communicating ahead of time, making sure everyone's on the same page, it's gonna lead to the most success and the least amount of errors. Tip number 6, always do a tossback. Now, I'm not saying always throw, I'm saying always do the actual tossback portion. So you always want to toss it back to somebody that's behind the attack or the clear line, so you have the option of taking a throw off the rush. You don't always need to, but you always want the option. If you don't, and you just have 2 people picking up the balls and backing up, well, if the other team is doing a tossback, they're going to have a free range on you, because you're not going to be able to do anything to defend, because you need to clear the ball first. So by just doing the tossback and giving your team the option, that's going to put you in the best position to make a defensive or counter move if necessary. Tip number 7, the person who's receiving the tossback should always be in a position where the ball will be cleared. The last thing you want is to be too high up, not clear the ball properly, and then get called out because you didn't clear. So you always want to make sure that the ball is going to clear. And now in WDBF film rules, it's only the ball that needs to pass the attack line or the clear line, not the person. So you could stand in front of the clear line and reach the ball behind you, and it will count as a clear. But you want to make sure that you're standing in a position where that is going to be possible. So again, this is something that you need to work on with your team. Tip number 8 is don't force a throw on the tossback. Now, if your team says, hey, it's your throw if you have it, and you're getting the tossback and it's too high or way too low, or you're off balance, or the other team's already ready for it because your team was a little too slow, don't force that throw. It's much better to pump fake and just regroup and keep that ball for a better play, a better option, than to try and force a throw. It's your job as the person receiving the tossback to make that split-second decision. Is the throw there, or is it not there? And if you make that decision to go for it, then go for it. And if it's not there, you need to be disciplined and not take that throw. It's just such a waste to dump the ball, and I see it so much with teams that they just feel like they have to take the throw, and it's just a grounder or just a high fly ball, or it's not even near the target. It's so much better to just pump fake and regroup when it's not there. Tip number 9, super important, you gotta practice. Now, the opening rush isn't necessarily gonna make or break most games, but it can start you off in a good spot, swing the momentum your way if you do get a hit off the opening rush. So it's important to practice with your team. Every team's gonna wanna try out different things and do something different. Again, all these things that I've talked about, like perfecting your steps to the line, perfecting the tossback, some players might want to run into the throw, take it with the momentum, and then throw. Some players might want to do the tossback already in position, standing still. So that's something that you got to figure out by practicing. That's something you got to perfect by practicing. And of course, you can use that practice time to practice some little trick opening rush plays to kind of deceive your opponent with what you're actually doing, and maybe be able to get an out because they didn't realize where the ball was coming from. I hope you guys found my top 9 opening rush tips helpful. Again, I'm going to have some drills specifically targeting being faster off the opening rush next week. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to drop a comment with any other dodgeball topics you'd like me to cover. And I'll see you guys next week.